All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back here to episode 11, Kicking It With Knuble. Mike, we're back. I know we had a couple guests these past couple episodes. Now we're back with some normal Flyers talk. How's everything going? I know we're a week away from Thanksgiving. How's life treating you?
Yeah, it's good. Staying busy and on the ice and watching games, and golf is kind of done. So yeah, it's kind of done for the year.
That sucks.
Yeah. So now it's kind of like just enjoying the holidays and head to Ireland on Sunday for a week, with watching Coldplay with Notre Dame, and then get back and it'll be Christmas time. So yeah. So
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's normal stuff. What everybody else is doing. So
yeah, right. Mike, as for the Flyers, it's been a pretty good month in November for the most part. They've definitely had some good games. I think the one thing I've noticed just in terms of the past couple of weeks is they're definitely starting to come together as a team. I think you can kind of sense it. Like you're seeing some just better moments in terms of play, whether it's they're actually, starting to score more goals, get more shots on net, things like that. It just seems like the overall game is kind of coming together. I think, obviously it's not going to be perfect because they're not a perfect team and, they don't have a lot of the things we talked about has been the high-end offense and things like that. But I think as a team, you can really see that it's, start to come together a little bit.
Yeah, it's, sometimes, as a team, you start the season, you kind of wondering how it's going to go. I think as a team, sometimes, it comes easier for certain teams, right? And it comes and you kind of have the horses and you have the all-stars and you seem to you win games. You don't feel like you have to be too desperate and all that. And it just kind of goes that direction. But, for the Flyers, I think, kind of getting out of your start and then you got to figure, to a person, kind of how hard we're going to have to work every night to win, and then when more guys are showing up to the rink and realizing we've got to every night's a battle for us. It is a very, very fine line. And I think, when you get put on kind of a razor's edge like that as a player, you realize how important every shift is throughout there and how fine the line is to win and lose every night. I think it kind of, you get more of those guys on that train, on that same track, and then you have a chance, and some teams, they can have 12 or 13 guys going and still win. You have a star, you got stars in their prime when Pittsburgh was in their prime, when Washington was in their prime. And, maybe you look at who's off to a great start, the Jets right now and some other teams off to great starts. It's they don't need everybody every night. So they can get away with bad goaltending one night because they know they might put up 5 or 6, and another night, they can get away with no scoring because they've got goaltending and Hellebuck is going to bail them out, and so it seems to be those teams can find ways to win. But, when that edge is a lot, when that edge is a lot finer, then it's, you need 16, 17 guys really having nice nights to have a chance to win. And maybe that's what some of them are feeling, I come to the rink prepared a little bit differently, knowing how hard it is to win every night and how they prepare to come in.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think some of the biggest things that have come from it is just you've had some games that have been a lot closer. You've had some ones that are all right, they're probably going to win this one. Again, it's not in terms of, when I look at it, I think the biggest thing is just the overall play is better. Obviously there's moments where you're well, that was a really bad period or things like that. But the overall play has been pretty good. They've had some injuries. York, Urson, Drysdale, are all three of them are on IR and day-to-day. And then Andre, he's hurt too. They had Helge Grans come up from the Phantoms. He made his NHL debut against the Avalanche this past week. And, with Urson being hurt, Mike, we've talked a lot, really since the beginning of this show about the goaltending. And Torts has basically been running the same couple of defensemen. He's been running, at least for those guys to play a ton of minutes, which I'll talk about that in a minute. And he's really been kind of going with the same goalies. He doesn't necessarily have a choice. He basically said the other day that if, when Urson does come back, if Fedotov and Kolosov are both playing well, he's going to play them. And, I think for Fedotov, we mentioned earlier in the season that he kind of lost the net early on, got it back. And when you look at Kolosov, he kind of came up and He's had some moments too. He hasn't gotten his first win yet, but he's definitely had some good moments, and at least been able to prove that he can stop the puck. When you overall kind of look at that and you look at these guys, it's definitely a calming sense, I guess, that you see Fedotov come in, he gets the net, and then you have Kolosov come in, he can kind of start making some saves too. It at least kind of gives you like a little bit of breath of fresh air that if Urson were to go down again or be down longer term, then for right now, that these guys can at least come in and start making some saves too.
Yeah, I mean it helps, and it's overall it's called competition, right? And these guys have come in, maybe things didn't go that have gone their way, and that could be for any reason. I've seen a lot of European goalies come over, and it's hard, right? And
yeah,
culture, the rinks are smaller. I'm reading some of the quotes from the guys. They talk about the plays laterally across, coming. Everybody knows they have the seam pass to score, which means you're making an east-west pass, laterally across the zone to a one-timer, and that's the way you're going to score. You think on power plays and a lot of one-timers and two-on-ones, like getting the goalie to move. And so that happens a little bit quicker than it does in Europe, and a little bit more skill, right? And a little more crispness to it. So it takes a little bit for those guys to pick that up. And scrambles are a lot harder in front of the net. When the puck's in front of the net, there's a little more desperation around there. And it's harder for goalies to cover pucks. Defensemen are getting pushed back into them. Some of these get loose and they get, they turn into like tap-ins, and the goalie's got to battle and realize how hard they have to battle for loose pucks. And it's like catching a loose mouse, right? In your kitchen, trying to catch a mouse. It's like you can't get a hold of it, right? So goalies feel the same thing. They just try to get a hold of the puck and you can't get it. So, I mean, there's a number of reasons, but at the end of the day, it's some good competition, and Torch has got to like that, because you have two guys that are battling for that number 2 spot, and they're competitors and they want to be number 2. Nobody wants to be number 3. Now, Harrison's coming back. If these guys get on a real run, maybe, he temporarily drops down. He's, Torch's going to let these 2 run with it a little bit and see what happens. So, again, I think that goes like, pretty much everything is day to day, right? And it's kind of what happened last night and how we're going to approach today. And I think we were kind of touching that on the beginning of the year. There's a lot of like moving parts, and there's a lot of things that can change on a daily basis, because quite frankly, there aren't a lot of guys in some of these spots that have locked down spots all the time. So
yeah,
and every team's like that. It's just maybe some superstars and they have fourth liners. This team, the delta seems to be a little bit closer together, but guys can trade in and out a little bit more. So, but back to the goalie thing, I think it's again, coming from Europe, it takes a little bit to get acclimated. Both on the ice and off the ice culturally, and figuring out your way and what the coach demands, how you're reacting to the coach, critiquing you, criticizing you, trying to make you better. And it's how goalies take that, and some will take it and run, and some will cower a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see which one is, which one of these guys, if they respond to that, they respond to the critiques that they're given.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, I think when you look at some of the guys that have struggled, Morgan Frost is one of them. Mike, I think for Frost, the way that I look at this, Frost, he's definitely struggled. I think when you look at him and just his overall game, I think there is sometimes a lack of tenacity, and sometimes kind of just getting, just being a little more physical, a little more engaged in terms of that. I'm not trying to be too negative on him. I've always been a Frost guy. I've always, think that he's had a really high skill set, and I think you saw that, with a lot of guys. In his defense, I do think there's been times where he hasn't necessarily had the best opportunity to succeed. A couple of years ago, he played with 38 different line mates in a season. Part of that is, from injuries and whatnot. And just, again, it goes back to the things we were talking about, is that the Flyers just aren't there yet to have solid lines either. You know what I mean? But in terms of Frost just kind of being in the doghouse, what's something that you can do just to get out of the doghouse? Like what is it that you can show, especially for a guy like Torts? You know what I mean? Like, like there's got to be something that Frost can do. And then it also comes to the point where it's like, how long, how many years are we going to go with the healthy scratches and all that? And then there was a report from Elliot Freeman, that, Chicago would make sense if the Flyers were to deal him. for Chicago's lack of centers, and the Flyers having some other ones as well. But they haven't really gotten a lot of scoring from centers this year. I mentioned that in a minute, but just any thoughts on Frost overall and just the whole kind of doghouse situation?
Yeah, you always feel bad, right? You see that situation, so-and-so's in the doghouse. Then you hear these, you see some players like, I was in the coach's doghouse, I found my way out. And it's like, how do you do that? And I guess as a player, you try and figure out, you kind of pick yourself back up again and try and figure out exactly what he's saying and really, really try and implement what he's talking about. A lot of times that's easier said than done. It might be asking you to do something out of your character, that doesn't come easily for you. And, and it's kind of like, and you can change players a little bit, but they kind of are what they are too. I mean, you can get them to on some of their details and that's for Frost and Torts to figure out, what are we talking about exactly? I mean, we can speculate. It's a really tough spot. It seems like always seems to be, during my career, there always seems to be one that finds their way there, and doesn't mean you're a bad player or anything. It just means you're not jiving with this coach, and it's up to the player. Give it a shot here. Like I'm going to try and make some adjustments, and then, and if you feel like again, those are conversations and trying to figure out, am I helping myself here? Am I trying to? Am I able to do what he wants? First of all, can I comprehend what he's telling me to do and show me video and can I digest that and then turn it around into a product on the ice and have it reflect in my play on the ice? And sometimes it just doesn't go. Some players can figure it out and a light will go off and they figure it out. And if they don't, then your next step is like, okay, well, you're talking to your agent and like, I got to get out of here. Like this isn't good for me. And then as a player, you don't want to get your career to stall out. On his side, wants to keep his career moving along and keep progressing as a player. And I think he's proven he has some pretty good talent. He came in last year. I think he scored a bunch of points at the end of the year. And and like you said, through no fault of his own, he gets moved around the lineup. And so kind of is, it's kind of the hand you're dealt here. I'm I go back to, I play with a number of guys. I mean, Patrick Sharp is a perfect example. And he didn't. Hitch couldn't quite find a spot for him in the lineup, and they moved him to Chicago, and he became a superstar. And I mean, it's there's a number of these situations. Now there's a bunch that don't work out too, and you kind of are where you are. But like, a change of scenery is not a bad thing sometimes for a player. This stuff starts to weigh on you. So it's you like to if you get to the point where it's like we both had enough, the organization's had enough, and the players had enough, and it's the most professional thing to do to move on. And he's an NHL player, and somebody's going to take him because they need to make adjustments too. I feel like there's a ton of teams on the struggle bus a little bit, and somebody will make room for him, if he's a good enough player.
Yeah. No, exactly. And, Mike, I feel like too, like for you, was there ever a moment where you were like, like in your career where you just kind of like weren't jiving with the coach and ended up turning it around in a positive way?
Yeah, I mean, I can think one way. It's funny. I kind of feel it my time with John Tortorella with the Rangers, but it's from a different thing. When we were playing in the minors, he was coaching Rochester, and I don't know if it's true on his end at all. Maybe it's just what I sense. But and I played in Adirondack, and we were in the same division. And I don't know. You played 10 times a year, and I probably wasn't a good. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know. I just felt like he hated me as a player and probably didn't think of much of me as a player. And then I ended up getting traded to New York, and he ended up getting an assistant coach job in New York. And then I don't know, in my recollection, and we didn't have to sit down and have a beer towards tonight and see if we recall it. He might, he's had so many players, he may not recall this. And I don't know if this is kind of the way I see it, and maybe I need to be straightened out. But like I kind of knew he didn't like me, as a player, and I don't know. Eventually, by about halfway point of the year, by January, I feel like I'm starting to win him over a little bit. And I don't know how it happened, by just being like, I don't know if it's just perseverance or what, and he wasn't making the calls. John Muckler was making the calls, but, I'm sure he's, behind the scenes being like, if I was the head coach, I wouldn't be playing this guy,
Right.
I don't know. We seem to get on and then years forward, I think I moved on to Boston, and I think maybe he took over Tampa at that point. I don't know when he must have had Tampa in the early 2000s. Because
you were in Boston in what, 2003?
Early 2000s. So I think he was somewhere else. Maybe he was the head guy in Tampa or somewhere. and then run into him in the hallways of Boston Garden. And then it was like, TD or whatever it's called now. But, and, with talking like old friends, and so it was like, I don't know, it's the way it goes, I don't know, Doghouse, other than that, Scotty Bowman too, because just I wasn't good enough. Here's another good doghouse story. When we're practicing during the Stanley Cup Finals, it might have been the year we played Philadelphia, and he was mad about a stationary breakout. I'll speed the story up a little bit, but he was mad about a stationary breakout, and so we had the Black Aces, the guys who didn't play, the scrubs who weren't playing. We'd be like the Tommy forecheck, and Nick Lidstrom of all people, who's a Hall of Famer, did something. It wasn't something. He came out behind the net. I was kind of the F1, and he looked one way and passed the other way, and somehow I knocked it out of the air, and I quick went down, and I don't know if I scored on the goal or Osgood or Mike Werner or whoever it was. And Scotty blows it down, and he calls everybody in, and I think I'm feeling pretty good. And Nick Lidstrom's probably like, well, come on, man, like this is like an off day for us. We're just going through the paces here. Don't be a hero out here, And then I come in to gather his team around. He's like, Nick. He had this way of talking. Anybody who plays for Scotty would know. He's like, Nick, that's good. That's not good enough. Nick, that's what we're talking about. Even Mike Knuble can knock that one down. I was like, everybody, and I was like, oh man, and my buddies are like side-eyeing me. They're like laughing at me. They're like, so that was pretty good fodder for a while. But that was another doghouse. That was more just because I wasn't good enough in his eyes, and we had too many good players. But
good.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So that was from Scotty Bowman. So I still remember that. Yeah. But it's, you remember that stuff as players, and
it sticks with you.
They sting a little bit. They sting sometimes, but then, years later, you kind of laugh, and you might get those guys together at a reunion. And you're like, you remember when he said that to me? And they might be like, no, I don't remember that. Other guys will be like, I do remember that. I was like, oh my God. So it's sometimes, doghouses suck, but then you look back, hopefully they're funny, Right. I don't know. Then you look back, and sometimes, I don't know. So I don't know how you get out of them. You just keep plugging, right? Until
just kind of do what you can do.
Figure out how to make this work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. And I think too, Mike, with kind of where the Flyers are at, it's like I'm at the point where if they are going to move on, obviously, for the Flyers, you definitely don't want to make moves just to make moves, because that doesn't really do anything. It doesn't help you. Mm-hmm. I think if they are going to do something, there definitely are guys on this roster that are like, all right, you probably could move on. I think some of them are probably closer for, trade deadline talk and things like that. And it's not even American Thanksgiving yet. Most of the things that happen around this time now are coaches get fired for a slump. And we saw that the other day with Jim Montgomery with the Bruins. But, just in terms of that and just kind of where the team is at, on more of a positive note, Konechny looks really good. Travis Sanheim looks really good. Eric Johnson played his 1000th game versus the Sabres. He was honored against Colorado. Mike, you did that as well with the Caps. How special is 1,000 games? Like, is there a way you could put that feeling into words, or no? Is it something that's just so special?
Yeah, there is. There's like no, there's no special bonus. There's no special thing. I mean, you see that, the teams get a stick or the team gives a stick, the players would chip in. I look like you got a Rolex or something the other day, and a little trip to somewhere. It seemed like Colorado had a real nice gesture. Their captain, Landeskog, was out there, presented them a gift. He spent a lot of time with the Colorado Avalanche. Very classy move by that organization for sure. But I think I was like 270th or something like that to do it. Maybe one of the oldest to get it done, age-wise. I think I was like 39 or something. But it's a pretty good validation, throughout the NHL, and amongst the players. It's a real milestone that certainly garners a lot of respect. I think, we're all super lucky to play one game in this league, let alone 1,000. But if you can get it there, it's like, if you can get to 1,000, it means you had a really, really nice effort, and you were very fortunate that you stayed healthy. Your quality of play was up to par. You figure it takes probably close to 12 to 14 years, 13, 15 years, something like that. If you're, with good health, and good playing ability and good time on ice, and, teams that want to re-sign you in multiple contracts. So, it's certainly like a special club in that respect that it takes a lot to achieve that point. And like I said, it's only, 300 guys. I think it's getting harder and harder. I think it's a young guys league. I think the pace of 1,000-game players is really going to slow down because it's such a young guys league now. And it's going to be a harder milestone to hit. And I really believe that. And just because the game's gotten quick, it's gotten really young, and players are challenging. Younger players are challenging for spots all the time. It's hard to play for too long because the pace and the injury and all that. It's hard to keep up. But yeah, it's a big thrill. You can't. It's a great feeling standing there. It means you made it. It's a big thrill. Your teammates are generally happy for you, and I think it's funny. Eric hasn't been here very long. He's played here 20 games when they print out the stick. I remember being teammates with Keith Primo for 7 games, and him reaching 1,000 games, and then it's great. Everybody chips in to buy him something. Right. You see this deduction on your paycheck. You're like, oh man, I hardly know. Like, I just got here, but it is the way it is, and it's a rite of passage, So right. I think it's one of the best honors a player can have, and probably one of the top 2 or 3 things that they may have a special goal, they may have won a gold medal in the Olympics or something World Junior, but then you throw 1,000 games, be in their top 2 or 3 proudest things that players accomplish.
Okay. As for this weekend, Mike, Flyers as of right now, they're 4-4-1 this month. They have 5 games left. Next one is Chicago, and that means the first matchup of Matvei Michkov against Connor Bedard. I believe this is the first time since the World Juniors of 22, I think, or 23. I can't remember off the top of my head. Michkov won the season, 18 games played, 15 points, 6 goals, 9 assists. Bedard has 1 more game played. He's got 15 points as well, 3 goals, 12 assists. Michkov responded really well to the benching. He had a couple points at the overtime winner in Ottawa. The shootout goal against San Jose, had a goal and assist that game. He's had some good moments, had I think, primary assist against Buffalo. He's played well overall in the season. Any thoughts on just these 2 young guys kind of going at it for the first time?
Yeah. I think certainly for Michkov, it's been a little bit. Bedard probably comes in a little more kind of a complete player. More of a 200-foot guy. Kind of anointed number 1 pick for a long time, right? So, Michkov is kind of learning what's gonna carry weight in this league, like as far as what I can get away with, what the coaching staff's gonna crack down on me, and it's hard, because it's as a coach, as a coaching staff, the kid's got some moxie, so you want to like kind of harness that. You don't want to take it away from him by any means,
right.
and you got to let them cheat a little bit. You got to let them, maybe, hang back and try and pick something off, or, try and not back check as hard and try and have a breakaway the other day. You got to let some of that go. Obviously he's been pretty good at finding ways to do that. Again, we talked about too, for being a young player, like you love to have a little more, veteran like stars around to help, insulate him a little bit, but, and help, what's the word I'm looking for? Not hide him. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm just kind of like, absorb him a little bit more and on nights
where, go through the motions kind of thing.
It's hard on a young player. I think one positive is he's really taking it on himself to be ready to play every night, and be a difference maker. I think you can tell in his play, he's trying to be a difference maker, and that might not jive exactly with Torts the way he does it sometimes. But again, like we just said, like kid's got moxie, he's got a way about him, and you got to kind of
let him play
edges a little bit, right? Buff off the edges a little bit, but you don't want to change the gem. You want to keep that diamond, whatever, but you got to buff the edges a little bit. So, I think his compete, and I think wanting to make a difference every night has been, I think, very evident. I think that's something that's pretty noticeable most days. So, but it's a good, a great young players going to be in this league for the next 15 years, these 2, and maybe on the same teams, maybe on different teams, maybe for Philly, maybe for Chicago, maybe who knows. But they're the fun, next generation of players coming through, and it's Bedard's having a little bit of a struggle this year too. So it's a fun matchup for fans for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. And one of the other guys that's played really well this year, Mike, Travis Sanheim, and it's come up in a lot of different things. It threw up a poll on our Twitter for Sanheim to make Team Canada for the Four Nations face-off. He's had a really good season. He leads the Flyers right now in time on ice, 25 minutes 35 seconds. Leads the NHL in time on ice, which is crazy. Played 31 minutes the other night against the Avs. And, I mentioned earlier, Torts has kind of been playing him. He literally said, we're going to be playing the shit out of Sandy. And I think it was Risto was the other one, just because they had Grons make his debut. They had some other guys. And, obviously I mentioned York and Andre are both on IR, same with Drysdale. So they have some defensemen out. I think the one thing you've noticed with Sanheim this year is like Sanheim always joined the rush. He was always one of the guys that was like, hey, look, like Sanheim's really, up in the play and joining the play. But it feels like he's doing it like every shift now. And he's really just taking over the game. And I think like the skating is one of the, the big things that I've always liked with Sanheim. And, he can skate. He's big. He's a big guy. He's 6'5". He's not very physical. He doesn't really use he's not like I'm trying to think how to explain. He's not really like a bruiser defenseman, but he still has a good, good size to him and everything like that too. When you look at, Team Canada and things like that, Mike, some guys are on this list, and I think Sanheim's kind of right there with, some of the other guys in terms of maybe making this team. When you look at the guys that are potentially could make it, Cale Makar, he's the only one that's confirmed as of right now. Sure. Then you have Devontae's from the Avs, Noah Dobson from the Islanders, Evan Bouchard from the Oilers, Pietrangelo from Vegas, Theodore from Vegas, Morrissey from the Jets, Uyghur from the Flames, and then Montour from Seattle, and then obviously Sanheim from the Flyers. Do you feel like, Sanheim could possibly make this team if he kind of keeps playing like this?
When you look at those numbers and the amount of ice time that he's bagging, it's his role in Philly is a clear cut number one, right? And so I think for him on this team, it's probably going to be like what kind of role they're going to put him in, or they want to play. It's hard to say. Is he good enough to play in this tournament? Absolutely. Is Canada like loaded with very, very good defensemen? Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So somebody's going to miss out, and
right.
That's a really hard decision. There's probably a committee that's looking at this, and he's going to make it very, very tough probably to not be on that team. And at the end of the year, at the end of the season, at the end of the decision-making process, he might either get the yeah or no, but he's going to be in the conversation probably to the 11th hour. And it could come down to a role thing. It could come to like we need a shot blocker more, or we need this type of defenseman a little bit more. But is he 100% worthy to be in this consideration, this short list? Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, it's you'd worry, you worry too, like you're playing a lot like that. You're playing, injury starts to become more relevant when you're exposed, right? A battleship leaves the harbor all the time. It's going to get dinged every once in a while, right? So it's like, if he's on the ice that long, it's something going to happen. And obviously his main number one concern is playing for the Philadelphia Flyers and not playing in the Four Nations Cup. So, but if it probably come down to what kind of role they want him to play, and if they need that type of guy, but being 6'4" and rangy, or 6'5" and rangy, and can skate, they're certainly going to put you near the top of the list.
And also both sides of special teams too, power play and penalty kill.
Yeah, you kill penalties, you can help on a PP. So I don't know, man. That's $1 million question. You look at the list, like Bouchard's a big PP guy, Theodore. There's enough PP guys there. Cal Makar is obviously running.
Morrissey
running one. There's a lot of guys having good years too, and so it's a dogfight, man. I don't envy the guys that have to make that decision. It's a really tough one. But does he deserve to be in here? Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing here, Mike, we have trivia. So this one, I went and looked at power play goals in your career, how many you scored, and kind of divvied up all different numbers. So it kind of took it took a while, I will say. But when I look at this, and I was looking at a lot of these different numbers, there were some teams that you scored a lot of power play goals against. So you scored 7 power play goals in your career against 3 different teams. So you know 7 all time against those 3 teams. So that's 21 total. What 3 teams are they?
All right. Well, I got to think of teams I used to play a lot and who you scored.
Yeah.
So I know, like in Buffalo, I went for one period. One time I went like 9, 10. We played like 10 games over 2.5 years or whatever, and I scored every game. So I'm gonna say Buffalo might be.
Did you really?
Something like that. I went on a streak like 2.5 years against Ryan Miller of all guys. So
that's crazy.
Even he remembers that.
Yeah.
Talk to him. So that I feel like Florida might be on there. I feel like Pittsburgh might be on there. I'm trying to think who I played a lot against. It's got to be somebody in the East. So I'm going to say Buffalo, Pittsburgh, or Florida. And that feels like it's – you said there's 3 teams?
3 teams, yeah.
Got to be – I'd say played against Montreal a lot too. I would say Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Florida. That's my answer.
You're close. It's Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey.
New Jersey? Oh,
Jersey,
right.
yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. Like I never had a ton of success against them, but maybe I had more with the Flyers than with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it was like when you were in Philly, I think you guys played Pitt like 8 times, 6 times?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They always played Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then it was like same with like Jersey and the Rangers too, right? It was like 6, 8 times.
Jersey, yeah. I played, yeah. Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, you start playing them a lot more. It didn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like that, but if you say so, that's good.
Yeah, no, that's good. There you go.
A lot on
you were close. Yeah, no, you were close. It's funny. When I was doing these questions months ago, I was like, I wonder how many of these he actually knows. And I feel like every one I do, like you get some part of the answer right, which is it's crazy. But yeah, no, it was a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. I'm honored. One of my things I was very happy about as a player was finally when he scored against every team in the league. That was one that I liked. Yeah, that was one. I thought that was a cool little one too. You know, we talked about 1,000 games earlier, but when you have a goal against every team in the league, I think that's a good one too. That means
that's a good one too.
Yeah, it teams you. Even a team you play, certain guys will never. Alex Ovechkin's never going to score a goal on the Washington Capitals, but like he's going to get every other, but for the rest of
other
us,
team,
for the rest of us who bounce around a little bit, to have one on against every team is I think a pretty good milestone too.
Yeah. And Mike, I meant to ask you too at some point. I know you said, I think you said December of 25 for Ovi. He could break that this year. I know he's banged up a little bit now, but he was buzzing for a bit.
Well, I mean, it was at like 0.74 goals a game, and that's
I think he what 14.
Yeah, it was like his highest per game rate in his career. At age 39. Yeah. Somebody's asking me, I go, how old is Ovi? I go, I don't know, 36, 37. And then on TV the other night they said 39. I was like, what? I was like, yeah, it snuck up. So I have December, 2025. Now, a 39-year-old is not going to keep up a 0.74 rate. Right. And obviously, he got dinged up a little bit. He doesn't miss games either, though. So I don't know.
That is true. It seems like he's out for a little bit, but
I don't know. Look kind of innocent to play. It's kind of interesting how it turned out. I mean, I don't know what happened to him, but and he had 2 goals that night, and he had 5 goals in 2 games. Really, I mean, that's a third of his goals in 2 games. So I don't know. It's I don't know. It'll be interesting. Hopefully, this doesn't keep him on the shelf for too long. But he's really starting to he was heating up, and it was starting to get pretty exciting. So
yeah.
People are wondering if he's going to do it this year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if he kept going at that rate, it could have been like February, March of 24 or 25.
Yeah. It's not. It's like again, you talk about. I always bring baseball analogy in there. Like, if you're a hitter, career or whatever, this type of hitter, you're going to go for a while really hot, and you're going to go for a while really cold, and you balance out. So he's, he'll probably go on a little bit of a scoreless streak at some point. I mean, he played 80 games. He's not going to score for.
No,
we'll go on a streak of whatever. It's just
especially because a lot of it was like the Caps' success too, and they were playing really well and all that too. So,
but certainly interesting to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff, Mike. Next week, just for everybody to know, we won't have a pod next week with the holiday. Mike, as Mike mentioned, will be in Ireland, so we'll be back the following week. We've got lot of good stuff coming. And I'm also working on some stuff too, Mike. I'm working on some pretty cool things for the new year for us to play. So
Okay. All
kind
right.
of see how that goes. But yeah, thanks everybody again for all support as always. And we'll talk to you guys all again next time. See you guys.
Thank you. See ya.